Everybody, thanks so much for listening. We have a really, really good guest today with an amazing story. We've been trying to get this going, and partially it's my fault. So I apologize, Tim. But we have him on here. Tim Winder's on. He has a podcast. He has a book out. I believe it's a book, right?
It is, yeah. I've written a novel, yeah.
If you want to find more about Tim, timwinders.com, WINDERS.com. Definitely check Tim out there. And like I said, they have the podcast and the YouTube show. You can check them out on those platforms. And also the book, which we'll catch up with in just a minute. Tim, thanks so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate your time today.
Yeah, great to join you, Rob. I've got some good lightning storm going on in the background here, so we might have little rumbles in the background while we're talking.
Hey, well, that's good. You know, the more the merrier as far as excitement in the interview. Where are you coming from, Tim, today to us?
I am, I'm in the passenger seat of my mobile office and home and everything, which is my RV. Motor coach. My wife and I live, travel, and work from here. And we are currently, as we're recording, just outside of Rapid City, South Dakota, just on the edge of the Black Hills, not far from Mount Rushmore and the Badlands and places like that, that some people might know. Really nice, pretty part of the country. It's just, we do have thunderstorms about every afternoon is the reason why we've got rumbling going on, but usually beautiful weather.
Well, as long as you're there now, I don't know about the winter time, if I would want to be up in those parts. I know North Dakota is extremely bad in the winter, but you would know this stuff probably better than me.
Yeah, we go south. I mean, we're mobile, so we
Right.
go where the weather's good, where's, we try to go where there's no pandemics. We try to go where there's things that are going okay. Yeah, we just kind of travel, Rob, to go the places that we think we're supposed to be. And so, yeah, I'll go south when it gets cold.
All right, so let's kick this around. Really impressive story for people that are listening. Again, I really hope that you find more about Tim, timwinders.com. Definitely check it out. Let's kick this around. So just to start off, you had $1 million company in 2008. Let's just start with that. So can you tell the audience how that kind of started off amazing, and then how you hit hard times and how everything escalated after that?
Yeah, Rob, I've been a business guy almost my whole life, and this will date me a little bit, but in the mid 80s, I started a company when I was in college even, and worked corporate for a little while in the 90s, but I've always been a business guy. I started companies, and some have done extremely well, some not so well, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, we started some real estate companies, and they did very well. And we had multiple companies, in fact, not just one that was a 7-figure business. And by the time 2008 rolled along, we were living in a big old house, country club, golf course, all the cool stuff. And we had what would have been valued then at over 15 million in real estate. And that gives people a little bit of clue as to maybe what may have happened next, because all of our business was real estate. And to fast forward the story, by 2013, we had gone through this slow, excruciatingly painful erosion of all of our companies, our assets, and we'd gone through bankruptcy. We'd gone through foreclosure. And in 2013, we were kicked out of our large 6,000 square foot home and put a couple things in storage, got an old Honda van with a few things, and my wife and I just hit the road, and we've been traveling ever since.
As far as like living in the RV, how is that all working out? I know kind of minimal of what goes on in an RV, but obviously the gas prices are out of this world, depending on, it's expensive whatever state you're in. But regardless of that, it's pretty bad over in the West. I know California. I had a good friend that had done the podcast many times. He was down in Death Valley, and it was like over almost $9. This was only like 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that's a pretty big tax on someone like you that, even if you're sitting still for quite a while, this doesn't seem like this is going to go down anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a good question, because people always want to know, okay, is it expensive? Is it inexpensive? And listen, there's resorts. In fact, we're sort of at a resort right now. It's not a high dollar resort, but we've got a pool, a gym.
Mhm.
We actually rented a golf cart. So we've got a golf cart sitting out front, and there's a golf course near us and all that. But we're also in a state, this is where it gets kind of cool.
Okay.
We are actually in a state that has some of the lowest general cost, not necessarily fuel. Fuel's kind of high everywhere. And we've made the decision to stick around here as long as the weather's nice. Now, one of the things we were going to do, Rob, is in a few weeks, we were going to head up to Montana. There's 3 states we haven't checked off our list: Montana, North Dakota, and Alaska. We were going to do Alaska, and then COVID hit, and it was, you can't get across Canada. So you're not going to go to Alaska. We'll figure that one out. We were going to do Montana. But then just recently, for those that have been following the news, there was some flooding in North Yellowstone.
Mhm.
We were going to be staying just north of there to go into Yellowstone to check it out. And we kind of looked at things and we say, you know what, why don't we just kind of stay where we are? Because where we are, we're spending a little over $300 a month to stay here.
Wow, what a steal.
And wait, and that includes electricity and water and all of that. And listen, we could go, here's kind of a gauge that we have as far as inflation. If my wife and I can go out to a decent dinner, nice dinner, have a glass or two of wine, and it'd be a nice experience, and we could get away for under $100. That to me is kind of a gauge for me. And we could do that in multiple places here. And so other things are lower cost. So we really, the nomad lifestyle creates there's issues with it, but we don't have to go anywhere. We could stay. I don't have to put, $500 worth of gas in this gas tank, to go 400 or 500 miles. I can choose to, and we're going to do that. We've got a passenger vehicle that we'll just explore locally and stay where we are. So it's choices. We have the freedom to do that.
So it sounds like a plan. I mean, I've heard very, good things about, this kind of lifestyle in general. And I think more people are going to turn to this, especially with the turmoil in this country, politically. I hate to even say this, God forbid this doesn't happen again, but any kind of these lockdown things, I think people are going to turn away from,
Let me bring that up. It was late 2018 that we moved into this RV.
Sure.
And we traveled. We did the Oregon coast during the summer of 19 and things like that. And late 2020, we were about to have a granddaughter that was going to be born down in Colorado. And so we went down to Colorado Springs in January of 2020. And so she was born. My wife had some business over in Europe. My wife came back. She wasn't feeling real good. And we're not sure if she had COVID at that time or not. But anyway, and so all of a sudden, we all know what happened in March 2020, and we're already living a socially distanced lifestyle before anybody even knew what the heck it was. And Rob, we're sitting there, we're watching all this unfold, and I was grieving. Listen, it was ugly for a lot of reasons. There were some sickness issues, and I don't care which side of the issue. I mean, there was a lot of weird stuff that happened. I don't care. No one can deny that there was a lot of weird stuff that was going on, but then there was also some people that were really getting sick. My wife and I just looked at each other and said, maybe this was why we're living in our RV, because we can go anywhere. We could go to South Dakota. We could go to Southern Utah. We don't have to go to states. And we just listen, I like freedom.
I agree.
I'm not talking about being reckless or anything like that, but and some people might get upset about this, I wasn't a big fan of wearing masks. And you know what? If you go to places where there aren't a lot of people, they were okay with that.
You do a lot of coaching. Now, are you coaching more young adults or more older adults? Who are the people you're coaching, Tim?
I actually am a strategic coach, and I primarily work with the C-suite or the owner's leadership team of businesses. And that's kind of my sweet spot. I work with a handful of organizations that I coach the leadership team one-on-one. And then I also do the strategic planning and all for them. So I'm a little bit more. When somebody said, "Oh, are you a life coach?" I go, not really. I've got a background. My background is industrial and systems engineering from Georgia Tech. And so process, system, structure, strategy, all of those things, I kind of peg the scale on those. And so probably with kind of what I've been through, and then the layering of all of that, I believe I'm able to add some value, at least for the people that I work with. I'm able to add some value. So that's what I work with. The good thing is, going back to something we talked about earlier, is it's not really industry specific. I mean, I deal with people in construction business, some that are still in real estate, some that are in like service industry, like the vacation industry, and even like digital, the digital marketing space and all that. So it's wide range. And I like that because I learn from different pieces, things like what we were talking about earlier of just what's going to be happening in the world as we move forward.
So what issues are these companies dealing with, when they're coming to you with all these issues and problems?
Yeah, well, usually it's kind of like basic 101 stuff, poor communications, strategy. They don't have a strategy in place. Everybody's so busy, they can't think, and put time into planning and things like that. And so it many times is basic type stuff. I mean, we're in a world right now where all of us have so much coming at us and so much stimulus and notifications and emails and messages and some of it's positive, a lot of it's negative, and it just erodes at people's ability to think, plan, strategize. So the big thing that I believe I'm able to solve is to just be an external observer that kind of steps in and helps connect the dots when they've got their head down, they're trying to get their jobs done, trying to keep their focus on what they're working on. I'll just help them connect the dots. That's what I say a lot of times. That doesn't really answer it, but it kind of gives you a clue as to what I do.
What do you hope people learn from the book Coach?
I hope to nudge people into thinking about success differently. It's a novel, it's a story, and I think it's a good story as a standalone, but it's kind of a inspirational story with purpose is the way I call it. I mean, there's a main character that as it starts off, they're in let's just say they're considering taking their own life. And miraculously, they make it through that. I mean, it's in chapter 1. It would have been a really short book had I, ended it right there. And the main character goes on this really interesting journey where he discovers a mentor that we'll call Coach that takes them through a process of really identifying and learning what success really is, or really helps them redefine what success is. And like I've said, that's kind of a theme for all that I do. And so I really just hope to get people thinking and nudge them a little bit, is what I would hope people would do with the book Coach. And it's Coach, a story of success redefined.
So just to go into the podcast as we go to the end of the interview, again, timwinders.com. Definitely check it out, WINDERS.com. As we go into the podcast, how did you start the podcast? Talk about what goes on there, the guests you bring on, all that jazz.
Yeah, but podcast is such a cool medium because it's kind of easy to get started, but it's not easy to continue. If that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of people that have done, I think I saw recently that, like 1 to 2 episodes and then they're done. And I was working with a client that had a podcast and I was kind of helping moderate and all. And it wasn't clicking. And I've always been a big podcast consumer. I love listening and gathering information, and it just wasn't clicking. And one of the people that we interviewed and I was kind of helping moderate said, "Man, Tim, you're really good at this. You should do a podcast." And I think a lot of people have thrown that around, truthfully, Rob. And so I said, well, maybe. I kind of waited and paused. And then I kind of put together some concepts and I made a big old list on a yellow pad of how many topics I could do and people I might could reach out to interview. And so we were on the coast of Oregon, man. I was 20 feet from Coos Bay in Oregon. And I got a mic right here where I'm sitting right now and hooked it up. And I just got started. And the first episode is homeless and bankrupt. I knew that I couldn't really go into what I wanted to until I told the story. So season 1 is really a lot more details on what we went through. Season 2 is talking about just living the RV life, because we get questions about that. And then season 3 is leadership, which is what people probably thought I would start with. And then we started doing interviews, and we're 170 episodes in now. And we interview people like, I've got a friend that was one of the original 6 at Netflix, one of the original founders of Netflix. A lot of business startup people, some people in ministry. We actually mashed together leadership, business, and ministry. And very similar to this, I love these conversations. It's long form interview, very little edit. We just like people to be able to listen in on a cool conversation that I enjoy having. So that's really what we do over at SeekGoCreate is the name of it. And it's redefining success in leadership, business, and ministry.
Again, for people that want to find more about Tim, it's timwinders.com. It's WINDERS, timwinders.com. Definitely check it out. Tim, I know you have the podcast on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Besides that, can you say the name of the podcast, and also where can people get that book?
Yeah, well, first of all, if they go to timwinders.com, there's a link that says book that'll give them a little more info. They could even download the first chapter if they just want to kind of check it out and get my writing style and see if they like it. So they could do that there. And they can also find the book on Amazon and all the places that you buy books. It's currently available as we're recording this in hardback and also in digital. And we're about to be releasing the audio book, and then I think paperback may be available later this year. So you could check out the book. Definitely read it. I'd love to get some feedback from your audience, because I think it's kind of a little bit of the target that I was shooting for. So that'd be great. And then the podcast is Seek, Go, Create. Those 3 words, those simple words, and you just do a search on Seek, Go, Create anywhere, and you could find it. It's on all the podcast players, and we are on YouTube, so you can actually watch the interviews. We do a little bit of edit there and also do some snippets so that you can watch some shorter versions, some 2 to 5 minute ones. But we do long form conversations like here. So just check it out, timwinders.com. You could usually get to all of it because there's a link to the podcast from there too.
All right, great. timwinders.com. Definitely check it out. Tim, thanks so much. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. We're going to have fun.